let's jump onto the Texans.
Yes.
Okay. So
start with somebody other than me on DeShaun Watson, please.
All right. Dean, what are your thoughts on DeShaun Watson?
I've got DeShaun at 4th. I think he's real comfortable in the offense, and O'Brien is putting pieces around him to help him run that offense as efficiently as possible. He showed a lot of moxie. I mean, he's not the most accurate guy, but when you're throwing to DeAndre Hopkins, you don't have to be the most accurate guy. I think he has a great year as long as he's healthy, and it looks like he is.
All right. Does the 9.3 touchdown rate from last year concern you at all as being just a standout for a regression candidate?
Yeah, I don't think that will maintain. That'll be an awfully tough pace to hold up with, but I still think he has a pretty good year.
All right. So who do you have him behind? Who's your top 3 ahead of him?
I've got Rodgers ahead of him. I've got. Well, let me get my notes out here.
All right, I'll hold off Hopper as long as I can while you get your notes.
I'm chomping at the bit over here like a caged animal.
I've got Rodgers, and I've got Brady, and I've got Wilson ahead of him.
Okay.
That's fair.
Hopper, go ahead. You want to rip them to pieces?
Kind of. The 9.3% touchdown rate is an absolutely unsustainable rate. So I've got another question for you. 3.9% interception rate. What do you make of that?
Doesn't get talked about enough.
No, it doesn't. It
It's
doesn't get talked about
insane.
enough that he was on pace for the second most interceptions in the league.
I think you're right. I think he's not the most accurate guy. He's going to throw interceptions. I think the Texans would hope that with a little more maturity, he won't try to force the ball as much. But again, it's tough not to when you've got a DeAndre Hopkins to throw the ball to, because the guy can catch anything that's close to him.
He can. He was on pace for 38 sacks. He had a very 61.8 completion percent. Not bad, not great. Slightly inflated 13.8 yards per completion. Thank you, Will Fuller. One other person has had a touchdown rate of 9.0 or higher on 100-plus pass attempts in the last 20 years. It's Peyton Manning in 2004. You've got some good news here. In this offense, quarterbacks do typically have a higher touchdown rate. TJ Yates, Brian Hoyer, Ryan Fitzpatrick have all eclipsed 5% and not come anywhere close to that anywhere else. So the offense does help this. Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins should stay relatively good. I don't expect Fuller's still at that 13.8 good or that touchdown rate good. DeShaun Watson is top 10 for me. I think I have him 8 right now. And I just think a lot of what happened last year is an anomaly, and I don't want to touch him at what his current ADP is.
Which is 312.
Yeah, I don't want to
410.
Yeah,
It's dropped. It's dropped significantly in the last couple of days.
Okay.
it has dropped over around, and that's good because he's a guy that I'm looking at taking somewhere in that 6 to 8 round range, and that's just because, again, the 9.3% touchdown rate is unsustainable. The 3.9% interception rate is concerning. He has rushing upside. He has the leg upside. The ACL doesn't concern me. He's recovered pretty quick from that. He's still young. I don't think that's gonna hinder him at all. But I don't hate DeShaun Watson. I hate DeShaun Watson's ADP.
Yeah, that is definitely the biggest thing. I've currently got him at 9, but I may end up bumping him a little higher into the 7-ish range, but that's probably about as high as I can go. But yeah, unless he gets that ADP down into probably the 5th round, I won't own him.
He's my 10, and I just want to see what he looks like post ACL injury. I mean, we talk about it. He's not a seasoned quarterback that's coming off of this injury. This is a guy who had maybe the best 6-game stretch he'll ever have in his career, but he'll still have the rushing upside to be a top 12 quarterback easily. I'm just not going to take him in that mid-round range.
That may have been the best 6-game stretch ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's going to come back down to earth. I think that his value comes in more Cam Newton ways than it does traditional ways.
So big plays,
and a lot of rushing.
And you also have, teams are able to now scout him for the entire offseason and now get to see what he was like in that offense. There's going to be regression, obviously. We'll just see how much so.
That 3.9% INT rate also really concerns me because the concerns that we had with him out of college, because this is our first draft class, was the arm strength. And that's
And he had some touch issues too.
He did have
Yeah.
some touch issues, and those are both in that interception rate's indicative of that. So you hope that as he gains experience that comes down.
All right. Well, enough hammering on DeShaun Watson. We've done it a lot this year. Let's talk about Lamar Miller. He was 21st in points per game last year. He's currently going off the board as the 25th running back at 5.05, even though Foreman may not even start the season. Is that a fair price for him, or do you think he should be going a little higher or lower?
I love him at 5.05. I think he should be going higher because of volume. He's never going to be efficient. I hate his efficiency. That's pretty well documented from anybody that listens to his show, but he was number 1 in base front carry rate to the tune of under 4 yards a carry. But he's reliable. He gets fed the football. Foreman's probably going to start on the pup if I had to take a wild guess, given that it's not even a year removed from a Achilles tear, and your typical recovery time for that is 340 days. So I think Lamar Miller has plenty of volume, even though he's not necessarily efficient, and that's what's got it done for him before. So if he's my RB2, I'm not disappointed. And if he's my RB3 and I can get him in the 5th round, I'm really not disappointed.
Exactly. I mean, like, he's a great flex play. He's a great running back to pick up if you go wide receiver heavy to start your draft as your RB2. He's shown that upside in the pass catching game when Watson was on his tear, as teams have to really, worry about Hopkins and Fuller. Miller just seems to find ways to get it done. He's never going to be super efficient, but there's nobody behind him because I don't think Foreman's going to play much this year. If he does, I mean, that's already incredible that he came back this quickly.
So I want to clarify something I said earlier. That number 1 in base front carry rate, he saw the most base front.
Okay.
And ran it under 4 yards a carry, but you're not going to have anybody else there for the first 6 games of the season, and he's always been a volume guy.
All right. Dean?
Yeah, somehow Miller has managed to finish in the top 17 running backs the last 4 years. I think I've got him as the 21st guy off the board, running back wise, and I think he's going to have the opportunity, especially the first half of the year. He could be a really solid RB2.
Yeah, I got him actually projected to go even up again in touches this next year and have him probably approaching 290, 295 without Foreman active the first couple weeks. He was at 270. He was at 274 last year.
Yeah.
Let me see what I have him at, but I'm pretty sure it ain't that.
That's like top 10 touch numbers there.
Yeah, and he's so inefficient that
Yeah.
he'll still be an RB2.
He's the new Frank Gore, forever RB2.
You're right. I've got him at 281. So.
All right. So with Deontay Foreman likely being a bit of an issue there, he's currently going 10.02 in ADP. I'm assuming as we get closer and news that he's probably on the pup list come on, he's going to drop, right?
He should. That's wishful thinking, and I've seen actually people drafting him at that too. But you've mentioned it, I think, on here before, and I've seen multiple tweets on Twitter about it. I don't remember who to source, so I apologize to that if you're somebody that tweeted this out. But the average recovery day for an Achilles injury is 340 days. He hurt it in November, which is about 6 weeks into the season for a full year since that's happened. 72% of people actually come back from that, and even then it's about year 2 before you see them actually have the same explosiveness and the same, type of on-field performance.
Yep, and he's also a larger framed back trying to come back from this. He's not a smaller framed guy who
he's a guy
didn't
that
need the power.
He's a guy that relies on power. So he's definitely, to me, starting the season on the pup, and I don't want to draft him. I like him long term. I still like him in Dynasty, but he's got to come back from this.
So you're looking for him more in 2019, not 2018.
Yeah, I'm not touching him at all this year in redraft.
Dean?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Foreman does much of anything to help your fantasy team this year.
And I'm not even sold on him in Dynasty, just because of the injury and the fact that he's a bigger guy, and the fact that he even struggled to come on last year. Wasn't until his actual game he got hurt and he actually looked efficient in the offense, which suggests that he's still learning the playbook, and with him being hurt and not being able to get the touches and the actual time on the field, it could take him even longer to make a bounce back. And with the Texans, with all that being set up right now, they're more of a win now team, and if he can't perform right now, he may not be part of their team's future.
So I think the window to buy him too, though, isn't right now. Wait until they confirm he's on the pup list and people start panicking.
Yep, that works.
Wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins. He's had multiple great seasons here. He only had the one off year with Osweiler. Where do you have him ranked?
He's my 2 because I love Brown, but I love Hopkins more than.
Here's my 1 pre-projections because I haven't started out Brown yet, so I can't say that confidently. But he's my 1. 8.15 targets a game over the last 3 years, 11 over the last 3 seasons per game. He's produced with anybody not named Osweiler, though. 24 end zone targets is good for third, 52% of team share for actually being in the end zone.
35% target share last year. And that'll drop with the healthy Fuller, but this is a guy that's always going to receive the work because he's the best at contested catches almost every year. Numbers may not say it so, but when you watch him play, if it's in his catch radius, he's going to catch it. So,
all right, Dean.
Yeah, I've got Hopkins as my 2. Also, I think he has another big year with Fuller on the other side and able to draw some attention away from him because Fuller played a lot better, and we'll get to that here in a minute. But he played a lot better with Watson than he does anybody else.
All right.
No, Will Fuller.
So how does 108 sound for ADP? Is that fair?
For Hopkins?
it sounds tasty.
No, that sounds great.
It just depends how your draft goes, if it goes running back heavy or not.
And that is the second wide receiver, I'm pretty sure. Because
it's running back heavy.
Super running back heavy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Brown's going, I believe, 5, and he's going 8.
Yep. And Beckham's going 10 or 11, I'm pretty sure.
I think it's only three or 4 wide receivers in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
I also like that they used Hopkins in the screen game last year. I just saw against Seattle when he took the one to the house. He was used in that way when they had Andre Johnson. So using him in a role where he can make a lot of big plays after the catch, it's going to create more havoc for defenses trying to guard him.
Yeah, he flashed a little Demaryius Thomas with that.
It was pretty.
All right, so on to Will Fuller. Dean, you said you had something on him, so I'm going to let you kick this off.
Well, Fuller played so much better with Watson. I've only got him at about 45 or 44 as far as wide receivers go. But for some reason, with Watson, he scored about 10 more fantasy points than he did without Watson. So as long as Watson's healthy, he may be a viable wide receiver 3 or 4 in fantasy.
Yeah, he's currently going at the 609, which is 30th wide receiver off the board.
That's too high.
Yeah.
That's insane.
That's a little scary to me. That's a lot to invest in a boom bust profile guy. He only had 50 targets last year, 5 targets per game. He played only 10 games. And 2.8 catches per game. So you're really relying on touchdowns.
Yeah, it was 5 targets a game, down from 7.07. You got Kiki QT there, who's a reliable slot guy that they've already said they liked as an upgrade in the slot. There's a 20% spread between his catch and catchable target rate. He doesn't separate. He's not great contested, only 6 end zone targets. And touchdowns were fluky last year. I mean, touchdowns are a fluky statistic, and I don't like to invest in that. So Fuller's another one of those best ball guys to me that if you're in a situation where you can leverage a couple big games, then sure. But he's not somebody I want to rely on week in and week out.
I love Will Fuller in best ball.
Oh, in best ball, yeah.
Love him.
But even there, he's probably going too high.
But he still has some flex upside. And I mean, obviously he's not going to see, the 25% touchdown rate he had last year.
I would assume not.
That was his touchdown rate with Watson, I think.
Yeah, with Watson.
Yeah.
Which is, I think he got all of his touchdowns with Watson. But, yeah.
All right. I'm assuming Kuti probably doesn't see enough targets to be reliable, right?
I mean, they've already said he's an upgrade over Miller. Tight ends had 100 targets last year, and only one of them is returning. It's down from 163 targets the year before. Cecil Short was actually the last slot receiver in this offense, and he had 75 targets as the only true slot receiver that's played with Bill O'Brien. So that was 6.8 a game because that was only over 11 games. So I actually have a little bit of faith in Kiki Kuti, and I think he does see enough targets this year to be potentially relevant.
So you're drafting him
late.
I mean, yes.
Yeah. I mean,
he's currently not being drafted at all.
No.
So the fact that he's drafted for you means something.
Yep.
If they can find unique ways to use him. I mean, he's a smaller guy that maybe they want him to use him as like a Ty Montgomery type of guy out of the backfield. Just get the ball in his hands and let him do his thing. He's a fantastic returner in both punt and kick return. but I don't know if there's enough targets for him to be fantasy relevant every week. So I'm not drafting him. He's definitely watch list for me though.
I've got him at 91 targets. You figure you got 140 some odd for Hopkins. You've got 50 some odd for Fuller, and then a little bit another 50 or so that you give to Steven Anderson. I mean, who else do you got?
I don't think Fuller is going to be third in targets on this team. He'll all target Cutie if he plays a full 16.
I don't think he will. Do we have our first shot bet of the season?
I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, Fuller versus Cootie shot bet.
Targets.
Yeah.
I don't have the drop queued up, but yeah, let's go for it.
All right, first shot bet of the year. I will get that recorded and tweeted out.
Or at least I don't think I do.
Dean, any thoughts on Kiki Kuti? If you have Watson as your 4, you may think you can support him as a third target.
I think they can support him as a third target. I think they may use him a little like Tavon Austin was used with the Rams, hopefully with better effect than Tavon. But they'll find a way to get him involved some way. I mean, he's got some talent.
All right. And then the two main tight end possibilities are Steven Anderson and Jordan Akins. Any preference between the two if you were taking a super deep dart throw?
Steven Anderson, because first-year tight ends don't typically produce, and it's the Brandon LaFell rule in play.
There's other people that can actually have targets. Who knows if the tight ends will actually be targeted this year?
I don't believe Will Fuller should be an NFL receiver. Personal opinion.
I'm not a big fan of him either, but I do have a little more faith than you do seem to.
I hate him. I hate boom bust if you haven't noticed.
All right, so pass. So we're just passing in general on Akins and Anderson.
Yes.
Dean, any additional thoughts on them?
No, I think you're right. I think they'll struggle to find targets.